Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for April 18th through 24th. This week I read 5 books, I watched 4 shows, I watched 5 movies, and I listened to 1 book. First we have 9 Rules to Break When Romancing a Rake. This is a book that I originally put on hold for the Read Fat Positive Readathon and didn't get to until this week because reasons. We all know that I really love readathons, but I think I'm starting to get a little bit burnt out on having to read certain things in certain time frames, especially when I rely on the library and when I get them and holds and all of that type of thing. Regardless, this is a historical romance with a fat protagonist who, as she's growing up, people seem to think she's kind of plain. They also look down on the fact that she's fat and this affects her confidence, so she is basically on the shelf, as they like to say, in that she's 28, she's never gotten married, and she's never been kissed. One day she makes a list of 9 things she would love to be able to do, but she's not allowed because she's a woman, and at the top of that list is to be kissed passionately. And then after a little bit of alcohol, a little bit of liquid encouragement, she ends up at the house of this man who she has wanted to kiss for a very long time. It goes from there. There's interesting family dynamics. There's also crossing off of basically everything on that list, which is wonderful. It was a really good time. I think Jean recommended this one to me, so thank you for that recommendation. Next we have Intergalactic Travels, Poems from a Fugitive Alien. This, as you might guess, is a collection of poetry about the author's experience growing up and being illegal in the United States, which is undocumented. This author is Black and Indigenous and immigrated from what we call Mexico, so there are a lot of intersections there, as well as the intersections of gender. This poetry collection included mixed media in it, so it was very interesting to look at on the page as well. I think we all know that I don't usually have the most important things to say about poetry. Besides, I think that this was an important collection and you should pick it up. Next I read the graphic novel Sheets because I've seen this here and there all over the bookish internet. I used to see it here and there out in the world when we were allowed to go out into the world, so I figured I would finally pick it up. Sheets is about this high school student whose mother recently passed away, leaving her laundromat, and her father is very, very depressed, and she's got, I think, at least one little sibling, and she basically takes care of the whole family as well as running the laundromat. And there's this guy that continuously comes in and tells her to give him the store so he can open up this fantasy spa thing that he wants to do. And he's just super annoying and creepy and is trying to sabotage their business. On the flip side of that, we have this character that is a ghost and is in the ghost world and is dealing with the fact that he is dead, and then eventually he comes into her world and wreaks some havoc. I found this a fun concept because of the way we have historically represented ghosts in Halloween costumes, which is taking a sheet and cutting out eye holes, which is exactly what the ghosts in this comic look like. They're technically invisible, but they wear sheets just so you can know where they are, and sometimes they'll put on little adornments like glasses or hair berets or that type of thing. However, that aspect of it is more interesting for me to think about than actually while I was reading it. I didn't really care about that plot too much until it wrapped up at the end. It does appear that there's a sequel to this as well, but I'm not rushing out to read it because this was just kind of a 3-star read for me, which is fine, but it wasn't something that I fell in love with. Next I read And the Ocean Was Our Sky by Patrick Ness. This is a reimagining of Moby Dick, but told from the perspective of the whale. Full disclosure, I've never read the classic because, as we know, I don't really read classics, but I love retellings of classics, so that's what drew me into reading this. That means if there were things other than the theme and the whole Call Me Ishmael thing from the book that I should have picked up on, I wouldn't have because I've never read the original book. This was interesting in that it was discombobulating just because the way the whales see the world is kind of upside down of the way that humans see the world, and they were searching for this one white ship, which I understood that reference. There are many things about Moby Dick that I feel like are just in public knowledge, such as Call Me Ishmael, and this one guy wanting to get this one white whale, and like things like that. I can understand the book took those things and made it its own. This book is also interspersed with illustrations, and in the final copy they are in color. I got an art copy that I picked up a couple of years ago at an event, so the art wasn't finalized yet, but I imagine it was going to be beautiful when it was in full color and fully done. As for the story itself, it was an adventure. I read it all in one day, so it's not a big epic thing that you have to spend weeks on. If it sounds like something you're interested in, go ahead and pick it up. Another book that I finished this week was Cool for the Summer by Dahlia Adler. This was very kindly sent to me by Wednesday Books. It came with a pair of glasses that match the glasses on the cover, which I've been wearing everywhere, and I think that people out and about give me smiles for that, so that's a nice feeling. Our main character, Larissa, was going to be working her normal summer job at a bookstore, but all of a sudden her mother had to travel for business and she had to go with her for the summer to this different location. At this location, they're kind of staying in the guest house of her mother's boss, and his daughter is there, and she ends up having a connection with her. She ends up having a very surprising connection with her as they start to fool around. Previous to this, she didn't know that she was into girls, and she's left a little bit confused by the experience. When they return to regular life, they haven't spoken for a couple of weeks, but the boy that she has been obsessing over for about 6 years is finally showing some interest in her, and then all of a sudden, the girl from the summer shows up at her high school. This was an excellent coming-of-age book that had a lot of miscommunication in it, so if that's not your thing, you're not going to enjoy this one. However, it's bibliophilic and queer and figuring out who you are, and at the end of this, the character doesn't exactly know what label she falls under. But one of the most important things about this book is the character goes to some people that she knows is bi or pan and kind of asks them how they knew they were, and they were the type of characters that always knew, which is just not the case for everyone who falls into those labels. I myself didn't come out until I was 30. That obviously was complicated by biphobia, internalized and otherwise, and the fact that I'm demi, and the fact that I never know when people are hitting on me and I don't understand emotions like that generally, so there's that. But being 17 and not knowing where you fall is perfectly normal, and I think this book aims to normalize that experience, which is just wonderful. This book is about friendships and partying and bibliophilia and what happens when you get everything you thought you've always wanted and how it feels different than you assumed it would. I believe this one comes out at the end of next month, and it's definitely a great summer read. On to what I watched, which is going to go fairly quickly. I finished watching The Chef Show, so now I'm going to have to find a different food-related thing to just throw on when I don't really want to think too hard. It might be Ugly Delicious, I haven't decided yet. We also watched some more episodes of Malcolm in the Middle, and we also watched some more episodes of Bones. I don't have anything really big to say about either of those things. However, we finally got to the finale of RuPaul's Drag Race, and I was super bummed out that one of the contestants was previously injured, so obviously suffered in her lip sync, and that was a thing. I'm happy with who won, don't get me wrong, I just didn't think the ranking was going to be what it ended up being, but there you have it. As for the 5 movies I watched this week, I actually watched all of them yesterday, and I knew that I wasn't going to want to spend too much time on them in this video, but because there are some people that get upset by the fact that my booktube videos have so much other content in them. For that reason, I actually live tweeted all 5 movies yesterday, so I will be putting that link down below. The 5 movies in question were Nobody, which was fantastic. This is a movie starring Bob Odenkirk, but then has an amazing cast besides that, and he actually trained for a couple of years before making this movie, which is just amazing. Then we went back to 1999 and watched Mystery Men, which is something I had never seen before. It's a superhero thing that was trying to be dark and gritty like Batman, and actually apparently used some of the same sets, so that was weird, but did it not as well in my opinion, and some of the humor is going to be just not great. Just gonna throw that out there. Then we watched Get Out, which I have been meaning to watch since it came out, so finally got around to that, and oh my god, I had so many feelings about this. There was so much about it that made me feel super uncomfortable and freaked out, and it was just super well done. And I want to watch every other horror movie like this because it was. Then we watched What We Do in the Shadows, which was a rewatch for me. This one is just delightful. I really enjoy this one. I could watch it again and again for just the little one-off gags. It's cute. And then after that we watched Tucker and Dale vs. Evil, which again is another rewatch for me. This one is a college kids go to a cabin in the woods and then suddenly they start dying situation, except for it's flipped on its head because our protagonists are the hillbillies in the woods and they have nothing to do with the fact that the college kids are dying. Just because of misconceptions, these things happened, and it's a lot of fun. On to the audiobook for this week. That was Sitting Pretty as read by the author. This was excellent. This was something that I picked up for the Disability Readathon, and if you remember my TBR for this readathon, my aim was just to pick up random things that fit into this category without picking specific prompts from their list, and this is something that's been on my holds list for ages, so I was happy that it just came in this month. Rebecca is an English teacher and she started an Instagram a while ago called Sitting Pretty about her life as a wheelchair user and observations from her vantage point in life, and this is that in book form from my understanding. It always feels a little bit weird to talk about somebody's memoir because it feels like you're retelling their story for them, which is not something that feels super comfortable to me. That being said, a section of this that really stuck with me was her teaching a class on disability in media to high school students for the first time and the challenges of that she didn't foresee, and how it was a very personal subject for her and she didn't foresee how that was going to affect her teaching. She went from a world of academia studying disability studies and then suddenly was trying to give this information to other people, and it was received with mixed results. This book also discusses the differences between the medical theory and the social theory of disability, and it does it in a very cohesive and easy to understand way. I obviously recommend picking this one up. That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a comment but want to make sure that I know you were here, just leave me an emoji or a smiley face if you're on your keyboard. Some people have asked if there's a way to financially support this channel, so I set up a Ko-fi account, which is a digital tipping service. The link for that is down below, as well as a link to my Amazon wishlist in case you would like to buy me a book. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!